Hello everybody, welcome back to another video, and in today's video we are going to be doing another unboxing. We have 4 NG and 4 Gemini Jets models to unbox today, so without further ado I think we're just going to go ahead and jump straight into it. So it's going to be the usual format, so I'm going to go through the aircraft that I will be unboxing and then we will get to the actual unboxing. So starting off today's unboxing, we have 2 aircraft that I've wanted for quite some time. These are 2 of the same aircraft, I should probably iterate. But we have 2 of the Gemini Jets Delta Connection CRJ900s. Gemini Jets released the American and the Delta CRJ900s a couple of years ago now, but they didn't account for the demand of these models because these are probably some of the most common aircraft you will find across the US, and they didn't account for demand. So a lot of people, including myself, didn't receive the first edition or the first release of the American and Delta CRJ900s. So I've had to wait for a re-release, and that is what this is. This is the second release within 5 years of the Delta Connection CRJ-900. We have yet to have a second release of the American CRJ-900s. I think the Delta ones were much more highly sought after than the American ones. However, I think for me, I would much rather a re-release of the American CRJ900, as I think they're a little bit more common around the DC area. Of course, you have the American Eagle service on the CRJ900 from Dulles to Charlotte, which is literally like a shuttle service. They come and they go all day long. And then of course Reagan is filled to the brim with American CRJ900s. So I'm hoping that Gemini Jets do also release the American CRJ900, but for now the Delta CRJ900 is a good addition to the collection. So I'm going to put these off to the side and we're going to go through some of the other aircraft we have to unbox today. Then next I have 3 aircraft which are all vaguely similar. I mean, there's very minor differences between them, but we have 3 of the new NG Southwest 737-700s. These are the most common aircraft that Southwest fly. These are everywhere around the US, and we have 3 of them. As I said, there are minor differences between them. So the 2 on the left here have the split scimitars, and then the one on the right here doesn't have the split scimitar. I decided to do this because I believe there are still some 737-700s flying around without the split scimitars, so I decided to get 1 without and 2 with. These aircraft have been on my list to get for a very, very long time. I have 1 Heart 737-700 in my collection, and that is the 2015 release of the Gemini Jets Heart 737-700, and that is the only release of the regular Southwest 737-700 we have had ever. And so I'm very excited that we finally have 3 very nice molds of the 737-700 for Southwest. Next up, we have an aircraft that isn't currently in service but will be hopefully soon. We have the new United Boeing 737 MAX 10. The MAX 10 is the newest variant of the MAX, the 737 MAX, and there's quite some controversy around the 737 MAX as a whole, but that is going on to affect the release of the 737 MAX 10, and United are set to be the launch customer of the 737 MAX 10. And next, moving on to wide bodies, here we have the new Gemini Jets British Airways Boeing 777-300ER. I do have a British Airways 777-300ER in my collection, however it is the first release of the British Airways 333. The reason why I kind of want to get rid of that one and replace it with this one is Gemini Jets have this tendency that whenever an airline adds a new aircraft into their fleet, Gemini Jets will jump the gun a bit and release that aircraft early before the airline actually has that aircraft in their fleet. Because of that, on multiple occasions with some of my British Airways aircraft, I've bought the first release version of that model, and then the airline will get that aircraft into their fleet, and you'll realize that Gemini Jets haven't exactly matched up a lot of the markings, and it's not exactly the fault of Gemini Jets because of course they didn't really have a reference, as the airline didn't have that aircraft in their fleet yet. We had that with the British Airways A350. British Airways added the Speedbird logo on the winglet of the British Airways A350, which Gemini Jets didn't feature on their first release of that model. And then with the 777-300, they have some of the markings in the wrong places. So this model is just going to be an up-to-date British Airways 777-300 that I can add into my collection. And then last but not least, we have a very exciting model. We have the new Air Force One. Well, this is due to be the new Air Force One anyway. This is the VC-25B based on the 747-8. Of course, the current Air Force One is based on the 747-200, and this one is currently being worked on. Well, they have two of them anyway, and they are currently being worked on, and they are expected to go into service in either 2027 or 2028. So it'll be very interesting to see how this aircraft looks. And yeah, that is all the aircraft we have to unbox today. And so starting off with the Delta CRJ900 here. Delta Connection have 164 of these in their fleet, and they are operated by both Endeavour Air and SkyWest. And the mold of the Gemini Jet CRJ-900 is okay. I mean, the fuselage and everything is fine. It's just the landing gear. As you can see, the landing gear there, the main landing gear, is just really close together, and that's not exactly how it's supposed to look. This problem has been kind of present on the CRJ-900 mold for a very long time, but Gemini Jets, in classic Gemini Jets fashion, haven't decided to do anything about it. And so here we have the aircraft. Starting off at the front, we have the classic nose shape of the CRJ aircraft with the L1 door there. We have the SkyTeam logo next to the L1 door, the Delta titles with the connection underneath the windows, the very long line of windows there on the CRJ900. We have the two emergency exits over the wings. We have the wing itself. We have the poorly placed undercarriage there as well. We have the registration with the American flag, and then we have the engines at the back with the T-tail. There's not really a ton to go over with this aircraft, so with that we are going to be moving on to our next ones. And so moving on to the Southwest 737-700s here. I'm going to get these all out of the box. We have the first one here. We have the second one and the third one. And so here we have probably the most common aircraft in the United States, the Southwest Boeing 737-700. These are getting old now. They are now the oldest aircraft in the Southwest fleet. But Southwest still have 382 of these in service. Eventually the 737 MAX 7 will replace these aircraft alongside the MAX 8 as well, and Southwest currently have 307 orders for the 737 MAX 7, but of course it will take years before Southwest replace the 737-700 because there are just so many. During the 737 MAX fiasco, Southwest were pretty uncertain about the future and the reliability of the 737 MAX. So Southwest did look into buying the A220 as a replacement for the 737-700. I think it would have been really interesting if that went further, but in the end, of course, they decided against that. Of course, I don't know the exact statistics, but I believe that the A220 is more fuel efficient than the MAX 7. But of course, with fleet commonality, it still makes sense for Southwest to stick with the MAX 7. But looking at the aircraft now, we have the nose of the 737-700, we have the L1 door, the Southwest titles there, the engines, we have the split scimitars here, the registration, the Southwest colours on the tail, and the American flag there. Overall, these aircraft are going to make great additions to the collection, and especially are going to make great additions to future Baltimore updates. And so next up here we have the United Boeing 737 MAX 10. This is going to be the longest variant of the 737 MAX family, and United are set to be the launch customer with 277 orders. Despite this though, because of the issues with the MCAS on the MAX 8 and then the emergency exit issues on the MAX 9, United have told Boeing to slow the release date of the 737 MAX 10 due to safety concerns. A set date of when the MAX 10 will go into service isn't confirmed, but is expected to be later on this year. Originally, the MAX 9 was going to be the longest variant of the 737 MAX, but when they started to take orders for the MAX 9, for every one MAX 9 that was being ordered, 5 A321neos were being ordered over at Airbus. So Boeing knew they needed a longer version of the 737 MAX to compete with Airbus. But even still, let's face it, the A320neo family of aircraft is absolutely blowing the 737 MAX out of the water. But opening up the box now, we have the first MAX 10 in my collection. This is definitely the largest 737 ever built. It is absolutely huge. It is more like, of course, an A321neo. It's crazy long. But starting off at the front here, we have, of course, the nose with the extended wheel on the 737 MAX. We have the Star Alliance logo there, the L1 door, the United titles, the blue engines, the blue winglets. We have the emergency exit on the back here. This is the emergency exit door plug that was causing all the issues on the MAX 9, so hopefully we don't have similar issues on the MAX 10. We have the Wi-Fi box up there, and then of course we have the United tail in the beautiful new United livery. Overall, this is a pretty cool model, and I cannot wait to add it into some Washington Dulles updates. Next up here we have the British Airways Boeing 777-300ER. British Airways don't have many of these. I mean, they have 16, so there's it's a decent amount, but compared to their 777-200ERs, they don't have that many because they have 43 of the 777-200s in service, and then they also have 18 orders for the 777X9. They have 18 of those on order, and they are due to be delivered in 2026. I believe originally they were supposed to be delivered in 2024, so this year. However, with the 777X delays, that has now been postponed to 2026. But with that, we're going to go ahead now and open up the British Airways Boeing 777-300s. And here we go, the much needed upgrade to the British Airways Boeing 777-300ER. And so here we have the aircraft. It's much nicer having the new kind of three-piece mold rather than the two-piece, which is the one I currently have. Of course, the old molds of the 777s would just have one giant wing piece that was kind of welded to the bottom of the aircraft, and now we have each wing as a separate mold, so it's much more detailed, much more realistic, and this aircraft looks absolutely beautiful. Starting off at the front, of course, we have the 777 nose there with the forward landing gear. We have the L1 door, the L2 door, the British Airways titles with the crown emblem there. And we have the blue engines, and then moving to the rear of the aircraft, we have the registration with the tail there as well. Overall, this aircraft looks really good, and it's a much needed upgrade from the old Gemini Jets British Airways 777-300. And last but not least, here we have the brand new Air Force One. This is the VC-25B, which is based on the 747-8, which is the newer variant of the 747, as opposed to the older Air Force One, which is based on the 747-200, which is a really old variant of the 747. It's not the original 747, of course the original being the -100, but the one after that was the -200. We then had the 400, which is of course is the one that British Airways operated a lot of. The 400s are kind of being retired now, and then the -8s are mainly still in service. Lufthansa still have the 747-8, and then a lot of cargo aircraft are just kind of treading in. I don't know if that's the right expression, but they're just kind of fleshing out their 747-8. So there will be cargo variants of the 747-8 for years, and if not decades in the future. And this aircraft will probably be the last 747 to operate in the world. The US Air Force will probably keep this Air Force One until at least 2070 or maybe 2080. So this aircraft will probably outlive any other 747 remaining in the world. Back around 2010, the US Air Force were looking for a replacement for the current Air Force One. They considered both the A380 and the 787. I think it's pretty impressive that they were considering the A380, considering it's not a US built aircraft. I think that's pretty cool, but also I think the 787 was probably a little bit too small for them. So in 2015 they settled on the 747-8. I think if they held out a little longer, the 777X would have been also a viable replacement for Air Force One, but they have now settled, of course, on the 747-8, and considering the 777X isn't going into service until I believe like 2025 now, they would have had to keep their current Air Force One in service for a lot longer to wait for the 777X. So it's probably wise that they eventually settled on the 747-8. In 2020, the two airframes that will become Air Force One were flown to San Antonio, and it's there where they are currently being worked on. Of course, a lot of the capabilities of Air Force One are kept top secret, as these are not just stock 747s. They have a lot of defense mechanisms that are, of course, as I say, top secret, that we will never find out about. But these are set to go into service and replace the current Air Force One in 2027 or 2028. So with that, we're going to go ahead now and open up the box, and here we have the giant 747-8 8. And so here we have the aircraft. Of course, Gemini jets are just sort of guessing at a lot of these features and where the placements of different things will go, but we have a lot of features that are very similar to the 747-200 variant. Of course, at the front here we have the nose with the refueling pod at the front where the refueler will attach there. We have the cockpit windows up there, and we then have the darker blue with the turquoise underneath. We have the presidential seal with the gold band stretching down the middle of the aircraft. We have the titles of the United States of America, and then we have the blue engines, and finally the US flag on the tail. This aircraft looks incredible, and it's going to look really good next to the older version of Air Force One and my C-32. Overall, I'm really happy with today's unboxing. We had no breakages, all the aircraft came in really good conditions, and yeah, these 3 aircraft down the front here are going to make great aircraft in updates in the future, and then of course this is going to be a really good replacement to my old British Airways 333, and of course the new Air Force One just looks really, really good. And so with that, I want to thank you very much for watching today's video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.